thoughts, because it would seem that if they had enough Kalashnikovs or enough tanks, they could destroy the other side. Why is it that it matters so much, do you think, to stay with the non-violent? And are you as confident as Bob Helvey was there in the film of saying they will win? I mean, I guess in some senses you can never know, but I'm interested how you take the example of Syria, for example.
Let's set Syria aside for a moment. There have been a lot of serious misconceptions of nonviolent struggle. The idea you have to have a Mahatma, that seems to be gone now. There was a misconception that it takes forever, and that's gone. That misconception is gone. There's a misconception by some of its advocates that you will get a quick victory with relatively little cost, and all the world will be changed forever thereafter, and no other problems will exist. And that's plain bullshit. If you have a very tough opponent, and you're seriously challenging that regime to vacate the offices, those people will not like that. And they have the political police, they have the armies, they have all kinds of things to do, and they're likely to beat you and kill you, and you expect that. In a war, if you do stop the war when the first casualties occur, that is usually a sign we must fight more strongly, or fight on a different front, or change our tactics slightly. But you don't give away and give up because there are casualties, and because it is said, we will kill more people, we'll do this and that, as your example cited. You expect that, and you have to have a plan to struggle. The Second World War was not won quickly in one campaign, quite to the contrary. Even leaving the question of occupied Europe to the side, there was a campaign in North Africa, there was a campaign in Italy, there were campaigns in other places. There was Normandy and the beaches there. And it was understood in military terms that if you have a very powerful opponent, you cannot wipe that away quickly. You will have to break it down into pieces and have a victory here and a victory there, and that weakens the opponent's dictatorial regime and strengthens the population more able to achieve the total victory. So in Syria, a very powerful regime with all kinds of internal problems and complexes and ethnic problems and histories. And that demonstration of great discipline and great fearlessness, which Gandhi always emphasized, and I always doubted. I thought he was a little bit of a romantic there. But they demonstrated in the streets of Syria, I am not afraid. If that opponent is big, and the people rebelling against them are not as strong as they need to be at that time, you have to start at a piece of that regime, win on that point. As your people become stronger and more experienced and more confident and more skilled, as you develop a more adequate strategy for the situation, comparable to what you would do in a big military struggle. Nonviolent struggle is more complicated, in my opinion, than military struggle, and really takes some very sharp minds with a lot of knowledge and a lot of study to plan how to do this effectively. And if they follow that pattern, shift the tactics, don't keep marching down the streets toward the machine guns, although that's been done. Burma is an example of that. Aung San Suu Kyi did that kind of thing years ago. Then maybe the day you don't march down the street at all. That may be the day everybody stays at home for 24 hours or 48 hours, terrifying the regime because of the discipline of the population and the control of the population that the resistance has, knowing that finally they cannot last against that kind of a directed resistance. That is what needs to be done. I am not a Syrian. I have not been to Syria. I do not tell Syrians what to do. But we have met with them. That's one reason we have developed a guide. It's on the computer website of aeinstein.org. It's called Self-Liberation, a guide to strategic planning for developing a liberation struggle against dictatorships or other oppression. You have to understand your own and know well your own society. You have to know the opponent's society and their weaknesses, not just their strengths. You have to understand nonviolent struggle in depth, not the superficial expressions of it you get ordinarily. You really have to understand it. And so for the sake of people's patience and readings, I reduced the amount of required readings down to only 900 in English. And some people say, we can't do that. I say, all right, you're not interested in liberation. If you can't read 900 pages to develop the capacity to liberate yourselves, you're not interested. Go play. You also need to understand strategy, not to assert your repudiation of the old system, not to show how evil the opponent is. Everybody seems to know that already. But how you can actually take step by step in face of repression in order to achieve your goals. And if you understand those three things, you have a chance of developing a winning strategy.
Thank you very much.